Afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of SpecTalk. This, as you all know, is our SpecTalk linking in SpecLink Part 2. This is going to be a slightly more advanced episode than we're used to today, but I think we've all got a ton to take away from it. I am coming to you live, not from my usual location. I am in beautiful, chilly, overcast downtown Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So if you see me get distracted looking out the window at the lake, just reel me back in. Joining me today, as always, is Alex Baer, Strategic Account Executive and Team Lead. Of course, Dory Azar. How's it going, Alex?
Great, doing wonderful.
Look, your voice sounds so much better now. It's fixed. Yeah. As always, Alex and I are more than happy to connect on LinkedIn. So if anybody wants to reach in and stay in touch with us that way, we are always more than welcome to do that. And if you've missed a previous episode or want to relive the magic of no doubt what's coming on today's episode, rib-software.com//SpecTalk. And you can find all of the pre-recorded episodes. They're usually within about 24 hours. Now, today, linking in SpecLink Advanced, we're going to cover some topics that are going to really expand the way you think about SpecLink and what it's capable of. So we'll talk about customizing linking logic for complex specs. We'll talk about coordinating section relationships across documents, and how to streamline workflow with advanced linking tools. And our guest is the same as it was last episode, Greg Markling. Welcome back to the show, Greg. I know last episode was so unbelievable. The reaction we got from the audience was so great and so valuable. So I'm so excited to see what you've got on deck for us today. So welcome back. And it's not every time I get to welcome somebody back-to-back episodes. So great to have you back.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's jump into I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and let's get into a poll question before Greg gets started. We are going to get a poll, get the audience warmed up here. So let's start with, what is your custom linking skill level right now? So are you doing a lot of linking? You're semi-pro, you're a pro, or a wizard? I'd love to see how many wizards we have on the call. We got a wizard or two.
All right.
Oh, all right. So we're going to have some good conversation today. That's for sure. Very, very excited about that. We'll wait for a few more to trickle in before we turn it over to our legendary guest today. All right. Okay. All right. Let's share these results. I think we are going to have an excellent and engaging talk today, because there's going to be a lot that people are going to benefit from today. On that note, the chat is open. If anybody has any questions or wants to leave any comments, Alex and I are going to be manning that, as well as a few others behind the scenes. So pour in your questions. But on that note, we'll turn it over to Mr. Greg Markling and have you wow us again with what you've got for us on linking and SpecLink today.
Thank you. I don't know about the wow factor, but we'll give it a shot. I think we're probably going to stay more in that semi-pro to maybe a little bit of pro category. There's not enough time in less than an hour to really get too deep. But what I really want to share today is actually do a demo of how I create a master using linking to do two things. If you remember last time, for those of you that were on the call last time, my two main strategies for using the link engine are one, save time, and one, to create what I would call a pre-edited master section that ultimately saves time, saves keystrokes, and also improves my quality control and quality assurance, so that I make sure that my base edits, underlying edits, are consistent from project to project for the stuff that's not necessarily project specific. And so that's my focus, the way what drives my decisions on how to use the linking to set up my masters. Just to back up a half a step, I've been using SpecLink for 25 plus years, full-time in the cloud for the last 2 to 2.5 years. Prior to that, pretty much hanging on to SpecLink E until I felt like the cloud was really ready functionally for me to jump into the cloud. But I've been in the cloud full-time now for 2 years, and I've pretty much cut the cord on SpecLink E at this point. So that's my background with SpecLink. the basics on the linking engine, of course, we have built-in links that come with each of the sections and cross section linking in the basic database. We'll talk about that very briefly on the sample section that we're going to do, but it's 100% programmable. You can add links to this program virtually limitless. There's no limit to it, really. We have in-section linking, which is the most predominant use of the linking engine in my experience. Cross-section linking is important, and sometimes I use it, but very carefully. Linking to choice fields is an interesting function that works, and we'll try to hit one of those on this demo. And then, of course, the reference standards engine is basically an automatic linking function that we won't really hit today, but just to, in short, when you drag a reference standard into, say, a user paragraph that you're adding to a section, it automatically links that to an entry under reference standards and creates all the links under the hood automatically, which to me is that's just mind-boggling all by itself. I just love that. So,
Greg, would you ever say there's a scenario where you would caution people against overlinking?
Definitely, and we're going to talk about that. Well,
okay.
The emphasis here is going to be let the links that exist in the database work. Use those links. Don't override them. Don't. A lot of folks I know, when they want to pre-edit a section as a master in their system, they just activate paragraphs, in the left-hand column and just basically turn everything on. And to me, that negates the activity of the linking that's already built into the system. You want to use those links. And so I'm going to kind of show you in a fairly small section, security glazing in Division 8. I'm just going to show you kind of how to do that strategically and tactically. Use the links that are there and only add them to the extent that you really need to make the whole system kind of work. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and grab the screen, and hopefully I know how to do this here.
The screen is all yours.
Entire, boom, share. Do you folks see my screen? No.
We see an infinite screen, so we need you to pull up your SpecLink or open your. There you go. Now we see SpecLink. Yeah.
Okay, so there's two sections we're gonna focus on here: security glazing, section 088853, the impact version, and then quality requirements is going to factor into this demonstration. And then we're going to look at my gypsum board assembly section as a closure to show you a different application. But basically, what I've got here is this security glazing assembly section, and I think SpecLink actually calls this section security glazing, and I changed the name to assemblies because it really does talk more about assemblies, and that's just a customization that I've done. You can change the section names and numbers, however you want to. That's for a topic for a different day. But you can see that I've added a couple of user paragraphs, which we'll talk about in a minute, but it's basically the section has been turned on, and the green activations are the built-in links, and the yellows are the built-in links that turn on when you turn the section on. There's a few of them in here, and it's pretty light touch. Mostly yellows, some greens, and mostly like part 1 and part 2. Part 3 is not active at this point, and it does typically turn on end of section. And so there's not much there. So what I typically do then is I add, I'm just going to start doing this here. This is in case I have somebody else in my master doing this. I've just added now a paragraph up here that I need to make sure is non-printing so that it doesn't affect the numbering of the section itself. And this is what I'm going to tie everything that I activate to. It's this one right here. I'm not going to tie it to the section title. I'm going to tie it to this so that I can always shut it off and go back to straight master without having to turn a bunch of things off to get there, right? It's all going to be driven off this paragraph. So I'm going to open up the link engine. And I'm going to go into the blank link engine, and I'm going to use this as my source sequence number to start. I'm going to drop that right in there. So that's the foundation for everything I'm going to do here. And then I'm going to open up to add links. And what do I want to turn on that isn't already turned on? Okay. Part 1 is turned on. That's cool. And this is, by the way, set up for a full-length spec. I'm not dealing anything with short form or outline or any of that stuff because I frankly don't use those two functions very often. This is for a full-length spec. So part 1 and part 2 are already active. I know I want part 3. So I'm going to drag that right down here. And you always have to save these. They don't automatically activate. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. And you see that it turned on part 3. Okay. And it registers over here. You can see that from this source, I now have an active green link to sequence 184. So that turned that on. So now what I want to do is I want to go back and take another look and say, okay, I think what I want is section includes for sure. Oh, I need to open this up again. It reloads every time. I want to turn this one on for sure. So I'm going to drop this one in there, and I'm going to drop a few things in here just so that we can, I know I'm going to want reference standards. I know I'm going to want submittals for sure. I'm going to say for now, I don't necessarily want administrative requirements, but I can always select it later. I'm definitely going to want quality assurance for some reason. Don't necessarily want a mock-up, but I'm going to want field conditions. And I'm probably going to want a warranty. So those are the articles that I know I want to have in my master. Since this
Greg, can I jump in real quick? There's a few questions and comments that are coming in about why bother linking reference standards? Aren't those automatically activated?
I didn't link that just now. I left it alone because once you activate a paragraph down below that has a reference standard in it, it will activate this paragraph, this article, and the reference standard together. So I'm leaving this alone. I'm not going to step on that right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a great thing to note too is we do the research here at SpecLink, and we put the standard sort of adjacent to the correct products. So that research piece, and then the link back, as Greg mentioned, helps to kind of make that all automated.
Yeah. So again, going through part 2, I know that since this is a proprietary section, I'm definitely going to want to activate the manufacturer. And I'm going to skip this one for now because we're going to come back to that one here in a minute. I'm going to leave polycarbonate security glazing system and plastic films alone because when I activate this paragraph right here, it will turn on this paragraph up here already. I know that link exists, so I'm not going to start messing with any of this. I'm going to let part 2 activate some of this stuff, as I make my selections. And since this is a master, and I don't know, in some cases I may do polycarbonate, in some cases I may do films. I'm not going to touch any of this in the basic edit right now. That's going to be project specific editing level. Okay, the rest of this is going to be driven probably by selections I make up here in Division 2. So that's pretty much all I think I want to do with that. Now, down in Part 3, I know I'm going to want examination, probably going to want preparation, and I'm making some value decisions here. Part 2 will activate this one. If I select polycarbonate security glazing system up in Part 2, this will activate. So I'm not going to activate it now, nor will I activate this one because it'll be driven by Part 2. But what I am going to probably want is tolerances, and I'm probably going to want field quality control. That looks like something only 10 links can be created at a time. Okay, I've already overloaded the system. So let's go ahead and save these, and then I'll come back. So the last one I did was 211 on tolerances. So I'm going to save those. And then see some things already turned on. I'm going to come back and add some more. I'm going to want field quality control. I'm going to want cleaning, and I'm probably going to want protection. Okay, so I've done my basic sweep on the stuff that I think I'm going to want regardless of which system I actually select. So I save those. You see that they all come on now. And what I've got here is I know I have security glazing assemblies including, and once I select one of these will turn on. So let's go down here, and just so I can show you how this works, for this project, polycarbonate security glazing system, I'm going to click that one because that's the one I think I want to use. And it crunches here for a minute. And it doesn't necessarily turn anything on yet, other than up here, it turned on polycarbonate security glazing system. And I haven't used the link engine. That was already built in, okay? So now and I do this a lot, so some of you folks I talked to a gentleman earlier this week about some process things. Let me see what I've got. So I'm going to use the print preview, and I've got this stuff turned on now, which is master level stuff, and I know I've got polycarbonate. I'm not quite sure why this ASTM reference standard doesn't print all the way out. That's something that I'm not sure why that's not showing that entire listing there. It's not all green text, so it looks like that's a little bit of something for the software folks or the content folks. That should show that entire listing there, but there's something wrong with that. So that happens from time to time. So now what I want to do, I'm going to show you another thing. We don't always necessarily delegate design of these systems, but sometimes we will. And so I have added a user paragraph here that says design engineering for security glazing assemblies. This paragraph will be my toggle for activating that content. So what I'm going to do, I got to close this to kind of get out of what I was doing before and come back into it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie a bunch of links to this paragraph. So this is now the paragraph that when I activate it, and this is, I don't turn it on with the standard edit, I make this choice here and I turn it on. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and I'm going to activate designer qualifications. And I'm going to activate performance requirements for exterior glazing assemblies. Those are the two things that I want to turn on when I activate that paragraph. Okay. So I've activated the paragraph. I'm going to save these links. And now what you'll see is designer qualifications has turned on. And why didn't performance requirements 091? Oh, it's still thinking. I'm going to refresh and see if it turns it on.
Always a good time for for the computer to just do a little extra thinking that it needs to be doing, isn't it? Is there ever a good time for that?
Yeah, and I was tinkering with this morning and testing it out, and
There is a question that came in that I would love to ask you while we're waiting for that to load, and I'm looking for. It was about so all the things that you're doing to your file here today, Greg. Do you have how would you get out of all of this? So if you didn't want it, if you wanted to revert back to your original master and not commit to any of the changes that you made today, how do you sort of do you just revert to master? Use that feature?
I turn that paragraph off. Because everything I've done so far is really tied back to this standard edit paragraph. And so when I shut that off, it's thinking right now, but it'll shut everything off.
So that's your, okay.
So that's my single toggle. See, it shut everything off. Now I'm back to the master out of the box.
Gotcha. So okay.
I haven't stepped on anything. And I can just, it's one click instead of 50 clicks, right?
Right.
That's where I'm saving time. We're showing an active link to this 091 here, 0091 to this design. Let's see if it turned it on this time just by kind of clicking through it. There it goes. Okay, it needed to kind of engage it a little bit. So when I linked to this paragraph, 0067 and 0091 in green, it activated designer qualifications and performance requirements for exterior glazing. Now you can see when performance requirements activated, several other things came with it,
right,
which I want, okay? But now for seismic loads, and I wouldn't do it this way, but I'm just gonna kind of show you how it works. This is a choice field. And the choices are either ASCE 7, which is linked to a reference standard, or applicable codes. Let's say that for my purposes, I want that choice to be applicable codes as a basic setting, okay? I'm just going to show you how it's done. I don't know that I would agree with that, but I'm just going to kind of show you how you link to a choice and make the choice that you want as your default. My base is going to be 0092 again. So I'm tying it now to this paragraph because this is a sub paragraph to that. And what I want to do now is I want to add a target link to this paragraph. And I'm going to drop it in. And it automatically opens the choice for me, so that I can decide which one I want to be exposed or open when that gets activated. In this case, I want it to be applicable code. So I simply check that and then save it. And it'll think for a minute here.
Greg, just a quick, another question while we're waiting for that clarification. I saw Alex answered it in the comments already, but I thought it was a really good question, asking about if A turns on B and C, can you click on C and have it turn on B and A? Do the links work in other directions like that?
You can change the disposition of a link. If you turn it into a user paragraph, you can actually change it from a green to a yellow or a red or whatever you want to do. You can't change it if it's a master paragraph that has not been altered one way or the other. So you can see here that it changed the choice here to applicable codes like I wanted it to, and it's still thinking a little bit here. It should turn this on now, but it changed the choice to the one that I wanted it changed to. I'm going to do something here because sometimes you have to play with this a little bit when you're in process, is kind of turn it off and turn it on again. And let's see here. 0097.
And I think just to add the color commentary, I think the nature of the question is, if you turn on A and if impacts, let's say, B and C, but you would also want a link where if you turn on C, it say it turns on A and B. So basically, if you turn on any of the scenarios, that it basically brings in the sort of interrelated ones. So those are you can add those.
And it looks like I have to do two links here. I've got one link for the choice and one link for the paragraph. So for the choice, it was a choice link, which shows the selection. And that I've already made. So now what I want to do is create a link for the paragraph, which actually turns it on. I'm going to save that. That's where this link engine works a little bit differently than SpecLink E. So you've created two choices. One, when this paragraph's added, it turns on the paragraph. The other link makes the choice selection for you. Now, you can always go back to ASCE7. It doesn't restrict you from going back to it, but as a default choice, you can tell it what you want it to say without having to mess with it. That becomes your master setting. Okay. So that's kind of how you link to a paragraph that has a choice field in it. So I've got this activated now. And okay, when I get to this project now, I'm going to turn that off. When I get to this paragraph or to this project, let's say I've copied this into a project and it's sitting here at my standard edit, because that's the way I usually have it set in my master. I leave it turned on to standard edit because that's where I want to start. And so I'm going to go back to that. And what I really have in my master looks like this. There are no reference standards active, but the paragraph is active. Quality assurance, let's see here, hang on a second. I've activated those paragraphs. Typically what I would want to do under submittals then is, I'm going to just take it another step further. I want to activate some things under submittals. So when the submittals paragraph is activated, I'm not going to tie any of these selections into standard edit, because if I've already activated submittals and I have the cross-reference established, there's something I want in here. I'm going to tie it to this one. So I'm going to use a tiered approach. I'm not going to tie everything to the one up top. But if I've activated the article, then there's some things in there that I'm going to want to keep. So I'm going to tie it to submittals. And this one already exists, so it shows up. I'm going to add some more. I'm definitely going to want product data. And let's say I want a sample. I definitely want to have a sample. but I don't know about the rest of this stuff. That's something I think I'll make those decisions when I get to the project, right? So I'll save those, and then down under here under quality assurance, this is one thing I want to talk to the software guys about. I don't like the idea that I have to back out of this and come back into it every time I want to change my disposition. But under quality assurance, I know I don't want to turn this on because that's tied to something else, but I definitely want installer qualifications. I know I'm going to want that. And let's just call it, and that's got a choice, but I like the way it's set right there. Documented experience. I'm not gonna mess with any of these right now. So I like the way it's edited. I'm just gonna leave it that way. So that turned that one on. Under field conditions.
Oh, Greg, could we just kind of expand on that for just a quick second? So just to because somebody asked a question about that. So, but you do have the option if there's a, you want to link something to a paragraph with choices.
Yes.
If it's a particular choice that, may impact a choice, you can, on the other hand, make some sort of calculated decisions there that will impact
Yes.
the
Yeah.
choice too.
You really need to just kind of think your way through how you want to set this up. It's 100% user choice. And I'm going kind of quick here, I realize, but I just said, now that I have field conditions open, I wanted these two paragraphs active, so I tied them to this paragraph, not the one up top. Warranty, I definitely want warranty active, so I'm going to come back in here and I want to tie a couple of things to the warranty paragraph. This one already turns on, it's built in, but I want this one. Whoops. I'm going too fast. I want to drop that one in there. And 2 years, fine. I could select 15-year. I could do whatever, but I'm going to leave that alone. Save that. It activated that. So that's kind of how I've got part one pretty much pre-edited. Okay. All right, so I'm in a project. I've copied this in, and I've done a similar approach in part two, and maybe part three is already pretty well populated with stuff that I want in the base edit. Because I don't always include these cross-reference sections. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So I don't necessarily automatically activate those. And this one I don't ever activate unless it's a lead project. So what I have now active coming into the project looks something like this. These paragraphs are going to be ostensibly in every version of this section that I would write for a project. Not much, but look at the number of keystrokes I've saved. There's probably 50 in here, 40 or 50 keystrokes that I don't have to worry about making. So now I come into a project and I say, okay, I definitely am going to delegate this design. And I'm going to do one final demonstration off of this paragraph here in a minute. But I definitely want delegated design. And it's thinking, okay, and now all this stuff looks good as a basic edit. Let's say I'm at DD and I'm not too concerned about all the, all of the detail, but I definitely want this manufacturer listing. So I've made 3 keystrokes so far, maybe 4. I've got all of this stuff looks good, and I'm going to use a polycarbonate security glazing system. I want this product. And I got a bunch of performance requirements that I want to specify. And we'll see what comes on. I want flexural strength. I want ignition temperature, and let's say I want burglary resistance. And I'm just making choices here. And then under polycarbonate security glazing, I think I want this one. I'm not using a designator for the drawings. It's the only type, so I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to activate this paragraph. Those 4 choices automatically come on, so that's fine. I think I want a VLT requirement. I don't have glazing frames. I've got those specified somewhere else, so I'm good with all that. Let's say that's kind of what I'm looking for the polycarbonate. And then I don't have any of these other things. I definitely need a glazing compound because that's telling me that something I did up here is calling for a glazing compound. So I activate this and this comes on, and color is selected. Okay, great. Nothing is being called for under finishes. I really don't need source quality control at this point. None of these other things are being called for by what I did up top. So I've made what, maybe 15 or 20 clicks. All my reference standards have been activated. The stuff up here has been activated. I'm going to do a quick print preview to see what it looks like. And this is what this section looks like now. Oh, got a couple of blanks I need to fill in. Okay, that's cool. It's paginated. It looks pretty tight. Everything is there. Oh, I want to put another page break in there. But there you've got it. Now you've got a 4-page section, and you've made about 20 clicks, and it's more or less done. Page break under 2.03. See, I want to put a page break right there. I've got some choices to fill in, which that's easy enough for everybody to understand. I would have to fill those in, do another quick print preview, and I've got essentially a DD level plus spec section that is paginated. It looks great. I'm ready to go. See? So that's kind of how it works. And I'm going to take that out of there. So the last one I want to do, and I think we're just about right on time here. So the other thing I want to do from this design engineering paragraph, over in quality requirements, there's a really nice feature in here: contractors, delegated, related professional design services, or delegated design work. SpecLink has this very nice list of sections that are linked to sections in the database that activate when that delegated design requirement is activated in a given section. And you can see, for those of you that use this a lot, I've modified this. I think the way SpecLink presents it, it's a little too, it's not to my liking. I've customized it. You can see I've added a lot of user paragraphs. I've modified most of the paragraphs that are there in master. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add section, and then I'm going to go into the choices, and I'm going to add section ID. I'm going to want to include the section title, and it's 088853, so I can find it, and I'm using the impact version of it. And so it creates this drag and drop reference, so that if I change that section name and number, it will change it here as well. So now I've created a listing up here as a user paragraph. All good. Now I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to link from this section to the other section to activate that paragraph in a completely different section. This is cool stuff. My drag and drop, I'm going to source it from this paragraph. So when I click this, not only does it activate the stuff in this section that I want, but it will activate my listing in quality requirements. So now I'm going to add, and the link type is cross section, and it opens up a window so that I can pick the section that I want to cross link it to. And I want to cross link it to 01 4000 quality requirements. And when I click on that, it literally opens up the section that I want to link it to in the same window. So now I've got quality requirements open. I scroll down to the paragraph that I want to link it to. 08. There it is, security glazing assemblies. And I take this and I drag it right down in there and save it. And I'm going to stay in the current section for now so that I can see if the link took. And there it is, the link took. So now I'm going to go, I've got this same section open over here. There's the same listing. I'm going to refresh it. Oh 088853 is active now. And if I come back over here, I want to go back to the original section that I was working in. And you notice I have tabs open up here. There's separate instances of SpecLink in the cloud. So it behaves a little differently this way than it did in SpecLink E. You literally are working in two different windows in the cloud. And so you kind of have to refresh things, and the system doesn't automatically catch up like it used to in SpecLink E. But if I go back to this section that I was working in before, and I now, let's say I don't want this, I shut this off, it will turn everything off that it activated in this section, but it will also then turn off that listing in quality requirements. Okay, all that's turned off. You can see that designer qualifications shut off, and the performance requirements paragraph shut off. So all that's gone with one click. And then if I go over here and I refresh this, that link is off. Isn't that slick? So that's that's a very quick demonstration of kind of how I use the linking engine to customize the setup of my master, and how I use it to save mouse clicks by the hundreds. The last little thing I'm going to show you is in my gypsum board assembly section, which has been heavily linked and preset. I have one major additional click that I can do in this section. It's set up as a base edit for wood framed buildings with no metal framing. Additional editing may be required. It almost always is, but I use this section about half the time in wood framed 3-story walk-up apartment buildings. So I don't need the metal framing stuff. But when I'm in a project where I do need the metal framing stuff, all I do is click this one button, and it takes maybe 30 seconds, maybe a little less. It turns on all of the metal framing requirements that I need for a metal framing project with one click. And that would be probably at least 75 to 100 clicks to do all that every time I need metal framing. Okay. And so it turned on all the listings associated with metal framing, and all of these are tied to other things further down in the section. But you see, it took about 20 seconds to turn all that stuff on. More editing
What
is
is,
definitely required, but I've saved myself probably 15 or 20 minutes at least with that
mhm.
one mouse click.
Greg, are there other examples where you use sort of these broad linking concepts? Like I love this one, the metal framing, one click, it's activating 75 or 100 other things for you. I know last episode you I think it was a paint example that you used, where you
Yeah.
do some mass linking. Do you have any other sort of really clever ways that you're saving yourself 100 clicks by creating one button?
Well, it's mostly this kind of an approach where I'm using a section in different ways, fundamentally different ways in different project types. I'd say, most of my sections are single use kind of things. Like if I have cold form metal framing, let's say,
Mhm.
it's pretty much going to be the same edit. The only difference is going to be if I'm delegating that design or I'm not delegating that design. And I would set it up to flip that edit to one way or the other, right?
Mhm.
But in an instance like this in chipboard assemblies, this is a major edit here with this one click because I need all the metal framing now.
Mhm.
I don't use the separate metal framing section that is available in SpecLink, and you could set it up that way. You could just set up that metal non-structural metal framing section as a master and use it that way. I've chosen not to because I want to curate my master in one section rather than curate 2 or 3 sections to cover all that scope. That's just a personal choice I've made, but you could make a different choice. Um, but then the other one that we did last time was, and I'll actually just call it up here. Maybe some of the folks on the call were on the call last time. I'll kind of show you how this works
And
in my
and
painting
also
section.
just quickly, that does make it easier to maintain the documents too. So if you take Greg's approach, then you've got just one master
It's
to
another
update and
strategy.
maintain.
Yeah, I want to curate as few master sections as possible for multiple use because I'm working with 30 clients, 40 clients, and
Mhm.
100 projects. I don't want a master for each client or each project type. That's way too much management. Here's another example. My painting sections are set up for Sherwin-Williams as basis of design, standard edit. And so there's a lot of other editing required, but I'll just show you real briefly. You can see that all the listings here are Sherwin-Williams, right? So if I click flip basis of design to PPG, all I do is click that button and I've got it set up to shut everything off that has to do with Sherwin-Williams with red links and green links to all the PPG listings. With one click, I now have PPG listings in the same categories.
That's an amazing time saving. Like I'm
Oh,
just thinking,
oh,
like
it,
everything we do in SpecLink, right? My brain defaults back. Like, how would we do this in Word, right? Like, what is the
oh, you
equivalent
don't,
workload in a word processor,
you
right?
don't,
And it's
you don't, you just don't. You can't.
right.
And then if I don't want that and I want to go back to Sherwin-Williams because the client didn't know what they wanted and they say, no, Greg, we want to go back to Sherwin-Williams, I just click that off and I'm back to
Eric
Sherwin-Williams.
Eric Ledbetter just chimed in. He said the word equivalent is to cry.
Yes,
So
yes,
you said
yes.
that. Eric, that's great,
Um,
Eric.
and Dunn Edwards is a regional manufacturer down here in Arizona, and I spec them fairly frequently with my clients down here. I click Dunn Edwards and I go back in here, and in the same categories, everything is Dunn Edwards. And you can see it literally, you're seeing this in real time. It takes 5 seconds okay, as opposed to 20 minutes. I'd much rather spend 5 seconds making this change than 20 minutes. And I think
Greg,
on this call would rather do that, right?
questions come in from Jill saying, you could also include all 4 manufacturer products and use a checkbox at the top with links to indicate which brands show up in part 2. It's kind of essentially what you're doing, right? Like it's a form of a checklist.
Yeah, you can set these checklists up however you want to set them up using the link engine. Now, it takes a fair amount of time to set this up initially, but once you set it up, it's a massive time saver, especially if you're changing or setting these up differently on a fairly frequent basis.
Yeah, I'm going through a couple more questions because we've got just 9 minutes left here. So there's a question that came in about the metal framing, and it was, what if you want metal framing but no wood framing? And could you just shut off?
In gypsum board assemblies, you're not really addressing wood framing in Division 9 in gypboard assemblies. The section is just simply edited to assume that all the gypboard is being applied to wood framing that's specified in a different section in that particular instance. So it just takes all the metal framing out of the edit, and it turns on certain paragraphs, maybe a handful of them, that make a reference to attachment of gypsum board to wood framing using certain types of screws, for instance. That paragraph would be active. But when you turn on the metal framing option, it flips that edit to, sheet screws for attachment of gypboard to metal framing, right? And so it just in very subtle ways, it would change the edit from one to the other. But the metal framing is specified with the gypboard assemblies when I have metal framing. When I have wood framing, it's not specified in Division 9. The wood framing is specified in Division 6. And possibly by a structural engineer that I'm not even writing that section. That's why I kind of set it up that way. Is about half the time I've got a structural engineer that's writing the rough carpentry section. So I don't want to step in their sandbox, and I've got it carefully set up to where I can do that with this system.
All right. Alex, you seeing any other questions you want to sneak in here while we got just a couple minutes left?
I think we've answered most of them. Let's see, we've got another one from Julian.
Chad says, how do you incorporate SpecLink content updates in heavily customized spec sections?
Well, that's a whole separate thing. I mean, for instance, in this listing here in the tree, you can see which sections are calling for updates. I manage, this is one of the masters I have for architecturally exposed structural steel. There are 8 updates available. I just look at them. Looks like it's all master text. I look at them individually to see where the update is, and just again, I curate the master and I process the updates in the master, and it doesn't affect the linking per se. I suppose theoretically it could in some cases, but I look at them all individually and process them and accept them individually, so that if it does affect a link, or I need to sort of adjust something in the linking aspect, I can do that in real time, and then I don't have to think about it anymore. But for the most part, the updates are a separate operation. Those are content issues, not link issues.
All right, we've got a comment that came in from Craig here that says, if the Markling retreat is not going to happen, how about an encore edition? And I think we should do. I think the Markling retreat with the Link Monster himself is getting some thumbs up on the screen here too. We may have to set something up here, Greg. Maybe something in the winter, someplace south. I'd love to attend to escape the temperatures that. I'll plan the time of year and the location. I just need you to show up and teach everybody how you maneuver SpecLink to make you do what you need it to do. This has been excellent.
I think I've given everybody kind of a taste of how this link engine can be used, and once you kind of play with it a little bit, you really learn how that link engine behaves and what it can do for you. I think your mind will start to think about, holy camole, I can do this with the link engine, or oh my goodness, wait a minute, I can do that. You know, it's the limit is really your imagination.
And I know from previous experience, we've had people leverage this with not only section-specific checklists, but with lead checklists. So if they know that they're going for lead, whatever status of lead a project is after, setting it up that way, so their cross-section linking really gets them off to the races there. Different, like people who are doing, say, prototypical stores across the country, where one might be in hurricane zones, one might be in seismic zones, and so where they're using a similar building, but with one check they can activate things on and off that make it specific to that geographic location. So yeah, what my biggest takeaway from this, and I think you've provided it, Greg, is I just want people to leave inspired with, you know, you did demonstrate how you can do it, but also kind of stoked our imaginations of what we could do. You know, flipping basis of design, flipping from, you know, including your metal framing, just thinking outside of the traditional linear workflow and how linking and SpecLink can broaden that.
There are some folks I know that create a blank section up in division 00 anywhere in the database that you want to create it with a whole bunch of one-click paragraphs that could be linked to 1,000 different things in the database that activate lead requirements, for instance. Or you could tie that into one of your lead sections in division 1, wherever it makes sense logically. I mean, theoretically, you could have a one-click that says this is a 3-story wood-framed walk-up apartment project, and you could theoretically pre-edit 50 sections to support that kind of a project type if you wanted to. I mean, it would take a while to set that up, but you can do anything you can imagine with this link engine.
Yeah, really, and that's what we're going to leave everybody with here today.
So we just the last thing I want to say to anybody that's on the call that requested my master, I have to send these through the cloud. It's going to take some time. So especially with the holidays coming up and all that stuff, just be patient with me. I'm going to try to knock 1 or 2 of them down each day, because it takes overnight minimum to get them into your accounts. And I got 45 requests for my master. So it's going to take me, it's going to take, be patient, be patient.
Well, some things like that are worth the wait. And you're a generous man for even making that available to people. And it's just a testament to your commitment to the spec community and helping your fellow spec writers just you know, be more efficient in what they're doing. So Greg, I just want to thank you again. I'm just going to get back to the part where we invite everybody, if you needed to reach out to Greg for any reason, his contact information is on the screen right now. We may have to do an encore edition in 2026. We may have to do the Markling retreat. I don't know. I'll be brainstorming over the holidays, that's for sure. In 2 weeks from today, guys, it's our final episode of the year. And just like we did last year, we're having on our very own Alex Fulton to do a SpecLink year in review. We're just going to talk about what changed. You know, maybe you weren't able to make all the episodes. We're going to talk about the features that came out. We'll have some fun with the most spec sections that happened this year. And we're just going to kind of recap everything that happened within SpecLink. And Alex is really good. We maybe bug him to share some of his tips and tricks with us again.
That's right.
To conclude the year. So, and I just, one more thing before I forget, this is a new slide that I just added. If you guys have an idea for a future episode, something that you want us to consider, an area of expertise that you would like us to dive deeper in, and you know, find the Greg Markling who specializes in that and bring it to the forefront, let us know. Drop me an email, LinkedIn, find me wherever, and we'll make sure we get that get that considered and try to add it to the roster for next year. Again, the replay episodes are rib-software.com/SpecTalk. You can find them there. And that's what we've got for you guys today. So thank you again very, very much for joining us for another excellent episode. Thank you, Greg. Alex, pleasure sharing the screen with you as always. And we will talk to everybody in 2 weeks. Take care and have a good one.
Take care,
folks.